Pashyati sapashyati. He is a man of wisdom. He has really understood the whole structure of this universe, who has known that these forces are really one. They come from the self-same source, God Himself. This is called the equilibrium, point of equilibrium of the universe. When this point of equilibrium is disturbed, there are several other forces which try to disturb this equilibrium. When this point of equilibrium is disturbed, then Lord Himself comes in embodied form. Also beautifully put by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam sriyamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkatam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge. Dharma is that concept where there is a proper understanding of these two forces as complementary, as helpful, as fulfilling. When this understanding is lacking, that is called adharma. This concept of dharma, when applied to human society, brings joy and happiness to the social institutions. When applied to individual life, brings consummation of life, salvation, eternal happiness. Sri Ramakrishna's advent is at a juncture when these forces were disturbed. Most of the disturbance came from the Western world. Those of you who have studied the Western history, I have no time to go into details of this history, but I will just refer to 2 points. In the Middle Ages, Europe was inspired with the force called faith. All European development in the Middle Ages came out of faith. Rome was the temple of God, is the place of God. All looked to Rome for inspiration. Out of this concept of faith came development in art and architecture, sculpture, poetry, prose. Tremendous thought developed, and what was known as the best in Western culture came in that period. This period was followed by another period called Renaissance, initiated by Da Vinci, that great scientist and thinker from Italy, Leonardo da Vinci. He released the forces of science and reason. When these forces were released, the force called faith thought erroneously that there was tremendous antagonism. Their existence was, as it were, challenged. There began a tussle between the forces of science and reason and the forces of faith. The force of faith, because it was not properly grounded, was slowly being shattered to pieces. Thus the antagonism between religion and the force of science came in the Renaissance. Renaissance is, mostly speaking, an outward tendency of human faculties to discover the sources of peace and joy. We will find from Leonardo da Vinci onwards, most of the forces were outside. Man was looking forward for joy and enjoyment from the external universe. What comes when a man looks outside for peace and joy, for existence, for security, is the 400 years of history of the Western world. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषु उपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः Smrti Kriti Bhraushat Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Beautiful sequence given by the Lord himself. When human faculties are externalized, all attention is externalized, what happens? Sangasteshu upajayate. Then attachment comes. Attachment to the external world. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. When the attachment develops, another transformation comes, it's called desire to enjoy. The first called attachment and lust, greed, they develop. First is called aggrandizement. They manifest themselves. Desire for acquisition, desire for selfishness, desire to say that we are the best at the cost of others. There must be somebody on whom we are going to acquire something. So these forces were slowly released as an outcome of externalization of the human attention. Then came Krodha as a byproduct of Kama. This Kama and Krodha engulfed, covered as it were, the power of discrimination which is inherent in human being. When the power of discrimination was gone, the fall has been inevitable. I live in a country which is known for its tremendous power. I have seen it with my own eyes. One senator in the United States often says on the floor of the Senate, his name is Goldwater. Mr. Goldwater, who was a candidate for presidency in 1964 when I went to the United States, he often says on the floor of the State Senate floor, he says, United States has got tremendous power to destroy the whole universe 13 times over. It's true. Then he says, why is it not that the president of our country not use this power to completely demolish Vietnam and finish Vietnam War once for all? A ridiculous statement. But to him it is most logical. Ego comes, national ego comes because of this power. When national ego comes, human being wants to use that power not to regenerate the whole human being, but to destroy human being. That is what happened in the Western world during the last 400 centuries. We in India were very much influenced by that power in the 18th and 19th century. In the wake of that power, certain other forces also came. One force was the law of evolution given by Charles Darwin, that the fittest will survive, those who are not fit should go. They have no place to stay, they have no reason to stay. Based on this law, acquisitions were made throughout the world. Three main powers of Europe, first the France, second Germany, and third Britain. Smaller powers like Spain and Portugal and Holland, they were also trying to acquire territories after territories with the help of little science they had developed. When the territories were acquired, they took their culture and forcibly imposed that culture on the people of the world. We know the history very well. At that juncture, Lord had to come to set the equilibrium. He came this time in a poor family, Dukhini Brahmani Kole, Keshueche Alokore. In a poor Brahmin family, Lord came. His name was Sri Ramakrishna, to set the equilibrium all right. When he lived, he came, nobody knew him. The most poor family. Guru came to the garden of Dakshineshwar, was set with a problem. He was appointed as a priest of the temple. The question came, I am worshipping this Divine Mother, is she alive? or it's only a piece of stone? If she is a piece of stone, there is a necessity of me to worship her. If she is alive, she must be able to speak to me. She must guide me. She must direct me. This tremendous problem came. There is a beautiful saying in Bengali. The saying says, মৃন্ময়ী কে চিন্ময়ী করতে গেলে হৃন্ময়ীকে ডাকতে হবে. If you want to see the Chinmayi, the living presence of Lord in Mrunmayi, in an image, then Hrinmayi, that Lord who is sitting in the lotus of the heart, you have to resort to that. Then only you can see the Chinmayi in the Mrunmayi. Sri Ramakrishna knew it very well. Went on performing spiritual practices one after another, like of which the world has never known anywhere. Not known outside the God of Dakshineshwar. This wonderful incarnation of God, God himself, performed these spiritual practices and came to the conclusion. Teachers came, they taught him and he taught them. That's outstanding. Totapuri was taught, Bhairava Brahmani was taught, other teachers were taught also. Physician of the Iron Age, Sri Ramakrishna made the pilgrimage. He took the suffering human race and pointed out, thou ailest here and here. He, as a physician, Bhavaroga Vaidya, he pointed out to the whole humanity, you are suffering not from any other disease, you are suffering from one disease, put in two forms, Kamini and Kanchan, lust and greed. Nobody gave this analysis as he gave. The whole universe is suffering through several ailments. We are trying to find out what are we suffering from. Our political institutions, our social institutions, our household, our individual life is suffering, we all know. We are trying to know the reason for this. Mistakenly, because we are not capable of understanding, we try to treat the symptoms and not the disease. We are trying to take care of the leaves and the fruits of a tree without taking care of the roots out of which the tree grows. Here came Sri Ramakrishna and pointed out exactly the suffering is due to attachment and lust. He gave the solution for them also. Vivek Vairagya. Vivek Vairagya, these are the solutions for the disease from which the whole human race is suffering. Demonstrated to the world after realization. He did not have realized, God himself came. But in order to set an example to human being, he went through the gamut of whole spiritual practice from the beginning to the end and made our past very easy so that we could put our lives in the crucible, in the form, in a setup which he prepared and get our lives go. He taught thousands who came to him in a most simple language. The teaching is going on. He taught while he was in the body. His teaching continues when he is out of the body, ever present amongst us, within us, outside us, through his teaching. Simple form. Because he had a realization, he could give those teachings in a most simple form. What he taught? 4 things he taught. 1, that there is an existence of God. God exists. Nobody can say that he is not. In the United States there was a fashion some 5 or 6 years back. The slogan was, God is dead. And I had to deal with this problem in my lectures in schools and colleges. Everybody will ask the question, where is God? I would recount this and say, where he is not, tell me where he is not. Instead of saying where he is, what is his nature, I am telling you why, where he is not. Show me one aspect of this universe, one jot in this universe where he is not. He pervades everywhere in this universe. Human being, limited as he is with his resources, he tries to see God through his sense organs. Swamiji came, a commentator, inseparable from the Lord himself, and showed what the universe which you see with your sense organs is God himself seen through the senses only. The universe is God itself. But with the help of sense organs we are going to see a fraction of this universe, fraction of God. Consider that as God himself. So first teaching of his was God exists. What is his nature? His nature is the condition of your mind. As your condition of mind is, so we'll see his nature. From the infinite Brahman, one without a second, to the speck of dust, is all his forms, is all his reading. Take any form you like, and see him with form and without form. There is no contradiction between with form and without form. Same thing appears with form and without form. Beautifully illustrated by him. A piece of ice, when heated, melts itself and becomes water. When that water is further heated, it becomes vapor. Where is the vapor gone? Is imperceptible, cannot be seen with the sense organs. But if you can catch hold of the vapor and apply coal to that vapor, you will find again the water. Add more coal to it, you will find a slab of ice. So, slab of ice is one form of God, and the other vapor is another form of God. One is imperceptible, another is perceptible. Perceptible and imperceptibility are the two aspects of God. Second tenet of his, that human being is divine. You do not understand human being as you see it from outside. Outside is the temple of that human being. He is called Purusha. In Vedanta, he is called Purusha. Purishyate. He is the indweller inside. Outside frame is only a protection for him. It may be human form, it may be male form, it may be female form. All forms are his forms. Second, therefore, his teaching was, each individual is divine. Commentator, Swami Vivekananda gave a commentary on that. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest that divinity within by controlling nature, external, internal. Do this either through knowledge, or through action, or through contemplation, or through devotion, either by one or by all four, and be free. That is all about religion. Churches, dogmas, doctrines, creeds form the secondary details of religion. When we try to understand the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna and the explanation commentaries given by Swamiji, you will get the clear picture of the religion or the truth as they taught. That's the second. Third, the whole universe is one. Fragmentation comes because of our sense organs. We make the fragmentation. There is no 2 points in this universe are disconnected. They are all connected together. They are connected with the subhuman species. They are connected with the plant and animal kingdom. They are connected with the stock and stones. Thus we are all one. The whole universe is one. He demonstrated this by seeing the presence of life, prana, in every aspect of this universe. Thus, the third principle was taught by him, oneness of existence. And the fourth important teaching of his was harmony of religion. Harmony of religion is a byproduct of his teaching. The principal teaching was renunciation, tyag, vairagya. Holy Mother was asked once a question. The disciple said, Mother, people say that Sri Ramakrishna came to teach harmony of religion. Is it true? Holy Mother immediately pointed out, now Baba, he came to teach tyag and vairagya. He came to teach Kamini Kanchana Tyag. That was the main aim. Because humanity is suffering from that disease. He wanted to treat the disease and not the symptoms. The byproduct of this was harmony of religion. Thus he taught these four principles in most simple language. I have never seen any teaching anywhere so simple, so direct, entering to the human heart as the teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, which he came to us through the gospel. The influence of gospel in the Western world is immense. We always recommend the reading of the gospel. When they read the gospel, a few pages, they are electrified, as it were. Harmony of religion has a tremendous import in the modern world, particularly in the Western countries where we live. One religion emphasizing that is the only religion, and therefore that should live, others should go. That effort has been made all the time. We Indians go from this country to United States, and without understanding our own tremendous teachings given by our sages here and Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, we find ourselves in a big problem. I was encountering a Christian missionary a few years back, and he told me, he said, Swami, for the last 200 years, we tried our level best to convert the whole of India to Christianity. You already know from the statements of Lord Macaulay. With all the force at our command, the political power, the money, the resources, with all the diplomacy, we tried. But we discovered that only 2% people of India are converted. Out of 650 million people, barely 12 million people are Christian. We couldn't understand what is there. Why the result should not come so quick? So he said, now we have introduced another system now. I said, what is that? Now we are accepting Indian best people. While we worked for 200 years, we only touched the lowest strata of the society, because the highest strata will not come. But now we have set a trap in such a way as your best engineers, best doctors, coming from high families, cultured families, they are coming to the United States attracted. What we are doing? We say, come on, they are all settled, they are trying to settle in the United States, and we ask them to procreate for us. When their children are born, they simply go to mission schools. There is no other school than a mission school, and they become Christian. They will become Christian. This is what his idea is. And I told him, Lord's ways are inscrutable. Nobody can understand. A Hindu is an intelligent fish. He accepts the bait and avoids the hook, says Swami Vivekananda. There is a tremendous power given to us by our sages, given to us by our incarnations. That power works. How it will work, we do not know, but the power has worked. It is up to us. When we go to Western countries, we should go. When we go to Western countries, we should be very well equipped. And unfortunately, our parents are absolutely ill-equipped. I give you one incident. I'm just running off my time. One incident. There is one family called Balkrishnans in Chicago. Great family devoted to our center, Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. They are all Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. They have got two daughters. Anita is the elder daughter, about 12 years old. She is a student of a Catholic school. Suddenly, the teacher one day told her, Anita, you will have to take the Mass. She asked, a very intelligent girl, said, Sir, what do you mean by Mass? Mass means you have to accept the blood and flesh of Jesus. And when you accept this blood, you will get salvation. Otherwise, you will go to hell. She asked naturally, what do you mean by hell? Oh, hell is that tremendous, torturous life where human being is sent, automatically goes if he doesn't come to the Lord. This is what the explanation she gave. She came home and told, Mommy, teacher is saying this, she asked me to take the mass. What should I do? Mommy knew, yes, she's devoted to Shama, she's devoted to our center. Suddenly gave me a call on the telephone. I said, you come and you bring the doctor with you. So daughter and mother have come to the center. Then I explained to them that we are perform the mass every morning and evening in our shrine rooms in our house. Mass means offering given to God with water, and whatever he has accepted remaining we take as prasad. That is mass. We are not required to drink the blood of Christ and take the flesh of Christ. It is not necessary. Naivedya is the mass. She was so much convinced, she went back to the school and told him, Sir, I am not required to take the mass. I am taking the mass every morning and evening in my house. Now, this teaching has to be given. There are innumerable Hindus who come from India, do not know ABC of Hinduism. Sometimes a Hindu is asked to come to the church and speak a few words about Hinduism. They call the center first. What do you mean by Hinduism? What are the tenets of Hinduism and so on? So they ask. Now what I mean is that when we go to foreign countries, we must be very well equipped, be prepared, well grounded in our own faith. We have everything with us. And Sri Ramakrishna is a tremendous source for the modern world. In the most simple language, through direct experience, the teaching is made available. Here comes her power, the Holy Mother, inseparable from him. Just as rays of the sun cannot be separated from the sun, just as the waves of the ocean cannot be separated from the ocean, just as the music cannot be separated from the instrument from which it comes, the Holy Mother cannot be separated from Sri Ramakrishna. She is the power. She guides the destiny. She inspires. Like a tremendous loving mother, she rears us, makes us grow, brings us to humanhood, and makes us go forward to our destiny. This wonderful manifestation called Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother is the savior from India at the present time. I pay my salutes to them and pray to them that they bring salvation and peace and joy not only to the people of India but to the whole world. Thank you very much.